Hello and welcome to the STEP How to Apply webinar. I am Kate Holt, the Student Services Manager at the IIS, and I'm here with Rakeeza Kanth, who is the Assistant Student Services Manager at the IIS. I can see some messages coming through, so I can see that you can hear us. If you have any problems, please just let us know. So this webinar, just as it says it is really entirely dedicated to information on how the application process works. And you can post questions in the chat, and then there'll be a section at the end for Q&A. So we will be with you here until 4 o'clock. So please have your questions at the ready. I'm going to bring up the presentation so that you can see, and I will hand over to Rakeeza. Thank you, Rakeeza.
So just a reminder for anyone who didn't attend the webinar last week, that will be available on the IIS YouTube channel in the next few days. So if you missed that, or if you saw it and there's somebody else that you know who might be interested in watching it, then please advise them to go to the IIS YouTube channel where you'll be able to view that webinar. This webinar is specifically about the application process. So there's an outline on the next slide. We'll just go through everything that we're going to cover today in this webinar. So first, we're going to go through the application requirements. So everything that you will need in order to make your application. Next, we'll show you how to make the application. Then we'll go through what the selection process involves. We'll have a run through some frequently asked questions. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A session where you can ask some questions to us. We do ask that you keep those relevant to the application process itself. Things like, eligibility or what documents you might need. If you have a question that's very, very specific to your circumstances, we'll try and answer it in a general manner so that it's applicable to many people. But if it's very specific to you, then we'll probably advise that you email admissions, and we'll give you the email address at the end, and we'll get back to you by email. Okay, right. So first, we've got the application requirements. So these are all the things that you will need in order to apply. First one is a degree qualification. That qualification needs to be equivalent to either first or second class British bachelor's degree. So we can't give one answer to this because it depends on what country you're from. It depends on things like how many years you studied for, what degree subject you studied, and what grades you got. So it varies country to country. So this is determined by UK ENIC. There is an organisation that compare international qualifications, and that's what we use to determine equivalence. Also for STEP, we use UCL. So there is some information on the UCL website if you'd like to have a look. If you go to the international student section, select your country, you can get an indication of what type of degree, what level, and what scores that you might need in order to be eligible. Next is proof of English language proficiency. So for most of you, unless you're from a country that is deemed by the UK as being a majority English-speaking country, such as the USA or Australia, then for the rest of you, you will need a valid IELTS certificate or equivalent. So please have a look at the FAQs on our website for specific details of the scores that you'll need, and a couple of other acceptable tests if you don't have access to IELTS. Next would be 4 letters of reference. So you will need 2 academic references, 1 professional reference, and 1 would be a support letter from your ITREP. Now, the way that you do this is you just put in your referee's contact details in the application form. You won't see the reference. The referee will be sent an email from the application system, and then they will input their reference for you. So you don't need that. The referee doesn't need to have completed the reference before you submit. Just mentioning that because that was something that's confused people in the past. You just need to have completed the reference form in order for your application to be considered complete. And if it isn't complete, we will then prompt them later on until we get a response. Next would be a minimum of 1 year's REC teaching experience. Ideally, that would be recent teaching experience. And that specifically has to be REC teaching. It can't be sort of any type of secular teaching. That would be great if you have it, but you do need a minimum of 1 year's REC teaching experience in order to be eligible for STEP. And next, a personal statement. So this would be a statement no longer than 750 words, demonstrating your interest in the program, a little bit about you. There are some prompts in the instructions that you can follow to write your personal statement. So these are the 5 mandatory things that you will need. So next, how do you make an application? So for those of you that haven't started your application yet, first you'll need to register your details on the application portal. So what you need to do there is provide your name and your email address, and then you'll be sent a link to verify your account. Once that's done, you'll be able to log in and out of the application, so you don't need to do it all in one go. You complete the application form, including the referee contact forms, and upload all of the required documentation that I just mentioned from the previous slide. Here points to note, as I just mentioned, you can log in and out of the portal. The application probably will take you some time, so don't feel like you need to rush and do it all in one go. You can do it one day and come back and do it another day or later on, as long as you do it before the deadline. So please make sure that all of the mandatory documents that are part of the application have been uploaded, and also please make sure that you press the submit form, complete the declaration, press the submit form before the application deadline. That's very, very important, because if you don't press submit, then your application won't reach us. And then also after you've done that, make sure that you complete the equal opportunities form. This form is kept separate from your application. So here's the selection process, just to give you an overview of, because it's quite lengthy, so just to let you know what to expect. The application deadline is in October, so between October to December, we'll have the review process. So your application will be checked first for eligibility. So we'll check to see whether you have all of the mandatory documents and whether you have the minimum scores required to meet the eligibility criteria. Once we've determined that your application is eligible, it will then be passed on to the review stage. It will be reviewed by 2 independent reviewers. Sorry, 3. We used to have 2. It will now be reviewed by 3 independent reviewers who will all look at your application completely separately and make a decision on your application. So based on the results of that review, your application will then be passed on to the next stage. This happens in early December. After that, if you're shortlisted, you will complete a 6-week teaching practicum. And this would be at a local REC. After that, then in the new year, around probably early February, you'll take an entrance exam, and that's everybody. So everybody who does the teaching practicum will also do the entrance exam, and they will have an interview. Next, after that, in March, the final, we have a big spreadsheet. Everything is looked at, and each application is looked at holistically, and so the final list will be decided around about the end of March, and decisions will be communicated to you by early April, by mid-April at the latest. But you can probably expect to hear from us around early April on who's been selected.
So thank you, Rakeeza. We're just going to go through a couple of the frequently asked questions. Things that come up sort of year to year. Whoops, sorry. I've taken an approved English language test and my results are due post deadline. Can I still apply for STEP? Unfortunately not. You won't be eligible as you haven't met the entry requirements, and so your application can't be considered. We absolutely have to have the English language test results by the deadline. If you haven't got one by then, or if you can't get one by then, we encourage you to apply for a future intake of STEP the following year, etc. I'm graduating in summer 2026. Can I still apply for STEP? Yes. But we will need an interim transcript which details all the modules that you have taken up to the point when you were applying. If you're accepted, your offer will be conditional upon the successful completion of your degree, and you will need to then provide proof of that to us. If selected, your final official transcripts and certificate will need to be submitted as soon as they are released by your educational institution. So try and get those as quickly as you possibly can and chase if necessary. And that needs to be by mid-July at the latest, or mid-May for anybody who's going to be doing the UCL pre-sessional course. Do I need to provide qualifications below undergraduate level? No, we only need evidence of your qualifications from undergraduate onwards. Don't submit any documents below that, please. They don't count. Will the IIS consider additional documentation? No, in order to be fair to everybody, we don't accept anything outside of what we ask for. So be very, make sure that you really look through what's required, that you understand it. If you have any questions, that you email the admissions inbox and provide only what we have specified that we need. We've got a sort of more comprehensive list of FAQs on our website. The link is here. You can see on the slide. And you can also watch, as Rakeeza mentioned earlier, the previous STEP webinar on the IIS YouTube channel. And there's the email address at the bottom, admissions@iis.act.uk for any further queries. So just to give you an idea, when you're applying, when you start your application, this is what the application portal will look like. So once you click on the website to get there, it will take you here. And you can see here in the corner, register to apply on the left-hand side. You go down to step, and then it will take you from there. And any questions again, or any difficulties that you have, please email the admissions inbox. So, Rakeeza, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I don't think so. If I've been answering a couple of the questions that we had in the Q&A, I think we've probably covered everything that you need in order to make an application. If you have any questions now, please put them in the Q&A box and we'll try our best to answer them for you. Somebody has asked if they don't have any experience in teaching, are they eligible to apply? Unfortunately, not at the moment. One of the mandatory requirements is 1 year's REC teaching experience. So we'd encourage you to try and get some experience and perhaps apply next year. Also, we would encourage you to, if you're not already, get in touch with your ITREB because you do need support from your ITREB. So, and they need to know who you are in order to be able to write a supporting reference for you. So if you're not already in touch with your ITREB, please do get in touch with them as soon as possible. Somebody has asked, what is the maximum age for applying? We don't have a cutoff of maximum age. So feel free to apply no matter what your age is. Another person is asking here, if I get a total band score of 7 and have less than 6.5 in any one component in the IELTS, can I still be eligible? No, so the minimum required would be 6.5 in any of the components, and you need to have a 7 overall. If you have a 6 in one of the components and 6.5 overall, then you can be considered, but that would be on a conditional basis. But anything below 6, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to consider your application this year. We'd advise you to improve your English, take the IELTS again, improve your score, and then reapply. I've got another question here about the personal statement. There is guidance and instructions in the application on how to write your personal statement. You could also reach out to your ITREB for support with your personal statement as well.
We have a question here. Can you please clarify the fee structure that we have to submit, I think you're asking sort of what the fees at your end would be. This is a whole scholarship, so all of your costs are covered, your tuition, living and accommodation costs.
Somebody's written here that REC teaching experience is not mandatory. It is mandatory. I don't recall us ever taking anyone who does not have any REC teaching experience. So I'm not sure where you've had that.
We've got a question here as well on reference letters. Does the reply of reference person have to be submitted before the deadline of the form submission, or they have more time than that? Yes. Basically, if possible, your references will be submitted when you submit your application. However, as Rakeeza mentioned, if there are any missing, you can chase those, and we can also chase them from the portal.
Someone is asking here, if we fail in the exam, how many times can we try? So if you don't reach a passing mark, but you get slightly below that, there can be, for some people, an opportunity to retake, but that would be based on looking at your application as a whole, and it's not guaranteed for everyone. So it's not necessarily a straightforward answer to that question. So just to kind of recap, if you get slightly below the passing grade and the admissions committee look at your whole application and would like to give you another shot at the exam, that is something that can happen. You can resit it once. Is there any limit to retrying? We don't have a limit, no. We have people that have applied a few times. They weren't lucky the first time or second time, and sometimes they've managed to get through on the third time. So we would encourage you to reapply. Do extracurricular activities matter? Well, I mean, they don't form part of the mandatory requirements of the application, but there is a section in the application where you can talk about your voluntary teaching or any other voluntary activities, and that is something that the reviewers will have a look at and would consider along with your application as a whole. Are there any other English proficiency tests that are accepted? There are a couple of others, just 2 others. So if you have a look on our website, you can see exactly what those are, like the Cambridge test, for example. If you look at the FAQs, you can see which tests they are and what scores you would need in each component in order to meet the entry requirements. Somebody also asked about the IELTS, whether you need to do IELTS academic or IELTS UKVI. So the IELTS test must be the academic version. It doesn't have to be the UKVI version. If you want to do that, you can. The IELTS for UKVI is, I think, slightly more expensive, but you don't have to do that version. Just make sure, please, that it's the IELTS academic version. That's the most important thing. Another question here, if I've given my IELTS in the past and have completed a master's degree in the US, do I have to redo my IELTS? The answer to that is, if you studied in the US and rather than doing it as part of a distance learning program, then you wouldn't need to do it, but you must have obtained your qualification no more than 2 years before the start date of the program. And so that's the case also for any IELTS certificate that you might have. It's only valid for 2 years. So please make sure that your IELTS certificate is going to be valid for not at the time that you apply, at the time that you would be joining the STEP program. So that would be September of the year that you plan to join. The IELTS certificate can be taken no more than 2 years before that September. So for 2026, that would be September 2024. Someone's asking a question about the GPISH application. We have got have webinars coming up for GPISH. They will be on the 22nd and 29th of September. Is that right, Kate?
Yeah.
Yeah, 22nd and 29th. So please visit our website for information on the GPISH webinars. GPISH application cycle will also be opening soon.
We have a couple of questions here about teaching experience in local schools rather than REC. With no experience in REC, we do need the REC teaching experience. There are a couple of those here. So if you don't have that, you'll need to organise some before applying to STEP.
Someone's asking about the graduate route. So STEP students are required to return home to fulfill their employment contract. So as you probably be aware, STEP students have a 5-year teaching contract. So you can't apply for the graduate route visa. You will need to go home to teach. One question here, which Pakistani degree is required for this program? There are many different degrees. I'm not sure whether you mean what, like bachelor's or master's. This depends. It depends on when you took your degree, how many years your degree was for, what institution you studied your degree in. I would say in general, if it's after 2016 and it's a 4-year degree, then that usually meets the entry criteria if you've got the correct scores, but it varies a lot. So, and you might not be in that situation. So it depends. You can send us an email for more information. Another thing I'd advise you to do is to check the UCL website as well for the specific scores.
There are a couple of questions also about reference letters. Would they be collected in person, or will we email them? No, when you get to the reference letter section of the application on the portal, you will put the details in of the referees that you've selected. They will get a notification of that, and they will connect to write their reference. And then, as I said, you can, as Rakeeza mentioned earlier, you can also check back in and see the progress of those and remind them. And we can also do that from our end.
Someone's asking about the entrance exam. So the exam will be, it will last for 3 hours. 2 days before the exam, you will be sent a reading. And then the exam will be based on that reading that you've been sent. That'll be sent to you by email. We don't have the question. The question's actually set by UCL, and it's also marked by UCL as well.
No, there are a couple have come in since, and there are quite a lot of ones about the references, sort of similar, that we've answered. Again, can my reference be filled after the deadline? Yes, as we said, you can, once you've submitted everything for the deadline, we'll be able to see any references still pending. So will you be able to, and they can be chased up.
If we get experience from teaching in summer camp, can we add this to the REC? Yes, that can be added to your REC teaching experience. If my professors are in another university than where they taught me, can I receive, I don't know what this means, LOR from them without previous university letterhead? That would be, if I've understood this question correctly, I think it's asking about if you're, if somebody who was a professor in a particular university has moved to another university, you just need to make sure that you're providing their professional email address rather than a personal one. So even if they've gone to another institution, just make sure that it's the particular institution that they're working in has to be their professional work email address, and that will be fine. Can one of the academic references be a professional job reference instead? Well, there is already one professional reference required. So ideally, we would like your to have 2 academic references. Now, if there's someone who's been out of education for a very long time, for example, and you would like to use, you would like to have 2 professional references and 1 academic reference, that is up to you. But we would just remind you that ideally it should be an academic reference, because the reviewers are looking to hear from your professors about whether you're suited for academic study at master's level. So ultimately, it's your decision to decide who will support your application best, as long as you're aware that that's what the reviewers will be looking for. I have 5 years experience. I took a 2-year break. Does my experience still count? That's okay. A 2-year break is okay. We can still consider that. Questions here about Tajikistan. Unfortunately, due to the political climate at the moment in Tajikistan, we aren't able to accept applications from people who are resident in Tajikistan. If you are Tajik but you are residing in Russia, then we can accept your application. Again, I have this, some questions are repeating now, ones that we've already answered about experience. Like ideally, you would have recent teaching experience, but if it's from a couple of years ago, that's okay. We can still consider it. Again, about IELTS, same question coming up. It has to be IELTS academic. We can't accept any other version of IELTS. It must be the academic version. And just as a reminder, again, it needs to be it needs to be taken no more than 2 years before the start of the program. So if you're starting in September 2026, it has to have been taken no sooner than September 2024. And yes, you have had a couple of questions about whether your REC teaching experience can be considered by adding up shorter periods. And yes, we can accept that. Are there any specific requirements regarding the bachelor's degree, or can people from different fields apply? Yes, your degree doesn't need to be in a specific subject. This is quite an important point that somebody's asked here. I studied in an English medium institute in India. Am I still eligible? So it doesn't matter if you've studied in an English medium institution or an English medium program. In order to be exempt, because this is a visa requirement as well as a program requirement. So if you've studied in the UK, then you can be exempt from the arts requirement. But if you studied in your country, even if your degree was in English, you will still need to have a valid IELTS certificate. That's very important. So please don't assume just because you might be completely fluent in English, degree, master's might have been studied in English, but that doesn't exempt you from the English language requirement. It is required for visa purposes as well as for the program.
We have another question about GPISH here as well. The webinars are on the 22nd and 29th of September for GPISH, and the information for those is on our website.
Someone is asking whether we only accept IELTS or whether we can accept other Canadian assessments. The only alternatives to IELTS are on our website. There's only a couple that we accept. So any Canadian assessments, no, we wouldn't accept those. So please have a look at our website to see the other tests. If you can't take IELTS and you want to take something else, there are only a couple of others that are acceptable. So please do look at our website to see the alternatives and what scores you need in those. For most of you, though, I think IELTS would be the most widely available and easily accessible test. We've got a few more questions about references here. A professional reference would be anywhere that you've worked. It doesn't need to be a specific type of job. It doesn't need to be a teaching job. It's any professional reference that you've worked, something that you feel that would support your application. So we don't dictate that it needs to be a teaching reference. And also someone's asking if they're reapplying, could they use the same professor that they used last year? Yes, that would be fine. Question here about what IELTS scores required. I mean, this information is all on our website. You need to have an overall band of 7, a minimum of 6.5 in each component. If you have slightly less than this, and that's 6.5 overall and 6 in each component, you may get a conditional offer. but you'll need to improve your scores before the program begins.
We've got another IELTS question here. Will I be notified as if I'm provisionally accepted in the program and then take the IELTS to avoid wasting the high cost of IELTS? No, you do need to submit the IELTS result with your application. The application won't be considered eligible and won't proceed unless we have the IELTS results.
Can applicants from Tajikistan apply for GPISH? It's the same situation for both programs. Can we attend other institutes part-time? No, you wouldn't have the time to study anything else alongside STEP at all. And our students are not permitted to work either. You receive a full scholarship for the program, so we don't expect you to work anywhere else, and you genuinely won't have the time to do that. If we have an overall score of 7 and in one component we have 6, can we still apply? You can apply, but that doesn't meet the requirements, so you would need to retake the IELTS. So you'd meet the minimum criteria in order to be considered for STEP, if that was your question.
As we've said as well, you can get all of the application criteria on our website, which will detail, the language tests, all of that. So please don't hesitate to check there. Also, in the next week or so, this webinar will be up on our IS YouTube channel. So you will be able to listen to it back, and, hear the answers to the questions that you'll probably have that we've answered.
I think this question has come up before about past teaching experience. I don't know how long ago you mean, but ideally, if it's a bit within the last 5 years, that would be best. If you have a specific question that we haven't addressed here, or that is very particular to your circumstances, please email admissions@is.ac.uk. Someone's asking about the minimum GPA. This varies depending on your university, on your country, sometimes on your university, sometimes on the program that you've studied. So it's not possible to answer here. If you go to the UCL website, select your country from the international students drop down, you can see exactly what degree you need, what level of degree you need to have studied, and what grades you need in order to meet the minimum criteria. Someone's asking here about application fees. No, there are no application fees in order to apply to STEP. Just a reminder again, for anyone who's not in touch with their ITRA, please do get in touch with them. They can support you. A lot of the questions that have been asked here, your ITRAs know the answer to. They do need to know who you are in order to support your application as well. So please get in touch with them as soon as you can if you haven't done already.
Can siblings apply for this program simultaneously? Yes, there's nothing to stop you doing so. You have 2 entirely separate applications as 2 separate people, so that's absolutely fine.
Someone's asking what documents are required. I'm a bit confused by that question, but perhaps you missed the webinar. So I'd advise that you, when the recording is available on the IS YouTube channel, that you go back and have a look to see what documents you need in order to apply. Also, this information is available in the FAQs on our website as well.
Does the program provide support for family expenses in case applicants relocate with their families, given that they're not permitted to work? No. So firstly, no, the scholarship is for you and you alone. We don't provide support for dependents. And also the immigration rules have changed in the last year, and students are no longer able to bring dependents with them.
Yeah, that's a very important point. Dependents cannot come with you. Another one. This question has been answered a few times already, whether a candidate needs to have UKVI IELTS It just needs to be the academic IELTS. It doesn't need to be the UKVI version. So please just make sure that it is academic. And it does not, if you want to take the UKVI version, that's fine, but it just needs to be the academic version.
I think now the majority of the questions, well, all of the ones that we're getting now are questions that have already been asked and answered several times in the webinar. So the best thing for you to do if you're still unsure, if you've missed any part of the webinar, is to wait for the recording to be released and then watch that back over. And if you still have questions then on any very specific issues or elements, you can email the admissions@iis.app.uk email. And as Rakeeza mentioned, also you can also be in touch with your ITREBs, which you should be in touch with anyway, in order they can fully support your application, and they will also have the answers to the majority of your questions, if not all. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. We hope that we have managed to cover everything and answer as many of your questions as possible. And as we've said, the webinar is recorded and will be available soon. You have the admissions email, you have your ITREBS contacts. So we hope to hear from you soon and see you on the applications portal. So thank you very much. Thank you, Rakeeza.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.